course.
Hey everybody, Bob Lazaro here from All Things Leland, and I'm pleased to have back as our guest Dr. Mouhcine Guettabi of the Regional Economist for the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. We last spoke in November and we talked generally about growth-related issues in Brunswick County and Leland, but he has just authored a series of economic profiles across the state and issued one for Brunswick County. So, Doctor, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You know, what, as I've seen in some newspaper articles, et cetera, a lot of people think of here as hospitality, those type of services. But I think what your economic profile is demonstrating is that with population growth are coming uh, better paying jobs and more jobs.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think that there is a misperception about the area's current economic profile, Brunswick County specifically, because we're still married to this historical view of what drove the area. But when you break down the numbers, it becomes very apparent very quickly that the types of businesses that exist in the area reflect a new Wilmington, a new Brunswick County, because you're seeing a lot of professional and business services, you're seeing a lot of finance, you're seeing a lot of information sector type jobs. And as you said, that's what I typically term as healthy diversification because it's higher paying jobs. It's jobs that hopefully our graduates from UNCW or CFCC can get. So
Right.
it allows you to keep local talent and it makes it easier to attract bigger companies who are in search of talent. And, not to get too technical, but, this is kind of the start of agglomeration economies, right? And so once you
Right.
have a certain set of businesses, now you can start thinking about supply chain. You can start thinking about attracting businesses that make sense in this area. But really, it's an undertold story. This diversification story, I think, is important to say and repeat because people become married to a certain narrative and it
Yes.
becomes really hard to kind of move away from it.
The fascinating thing that was highlighted in the report was the increase in the number of folks related to the medical field.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a fourfold or fivefold increase.
Yeah, it's a really big increase. It's reflective of, as you know, the fact that the area A has been growing really fast, right? And so, and healthcare is very responsive to population growth, but more specifically, it's obviously the type of population that's been moving into the area. Brunswick County is an older or attracts an older population, has gotten older quite a bit over the last half decade. And healthcare has been growing really fast at the state level, well, at the national level, at the state level, and then more specifically in the Southeast. And that's continuing. I don't want to say that it's driving economic growth, but it's really
Right.
been one of the more stable sectors that's continued to grow even as the state has decelerated.
It certainly attracts a higher wage job.
Hmm. Yeah, there is no doubt.
I mean, here in Leland, there are two medical facilities under construction,
Yeah.
and there's a certificate of public need application in for Novant to build a smaller hospital here
Yeah.
in northern Brunswick County.
Yeah.
So the other thing that was interesting to me in North Carolina is a very well-positioned state in terms of economic development, is that wages, employment, and the number of establishments exceeded the state average.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's probably not a surprise to anybody that keeps seeing Brunswick County or Wilmington in the headlines, but it's true that it's not just a population story anymore. It's a wage growth story. It's an employment story. It's a business growth story, meaning that the population growth has translated into economic growth. And the thing that's important is because some of these jobs, as you pointed out, are fairly high paying jobs, that means secondary and tertiary effects that are fairly pronounced, right? And so, from a consumption standpoint, these are jobs that are able to support higher levels of consumption, which means that there is an incentive to potentially create even more amenities for these new residents. But yeah, Brunswick County New Hanover even have both outperformed the statewide average,
Mhm.
even as you said, in a state that's done really well relative to the rest of the country.
I mean, the one thing that you've touched on previously, and what I've seen in reports is the issue of affordability, and it's housing, housing, and housing. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that seems to be a chink in the armor across the country.
Yeah, I think that I think we've touched on it very briefly last time, but I really view housing as a an economic development story, right? And so, because
Right.
you called it a chink in the armor, it's really the thing that could potentially slow down growth, right? And so, because we're kind of approaching this point where if affordability continues to be challenged and there is no sign that it's going to get resolved tomorrow, then from a locational perspective, when a firm is thinking about where they want to move to, as you know, they want to know about the quality of the labor force and they want to know if their workers are going to be able to live in that area.
Sure.
So if affordability continues to be a challenge, then you're kind of dissuading companies from moving to the area, or they're looking for the next place where their workers can live. And so it's really central to long-term planning, to long-term
Sure.
economic development, because without it, you really are ceding the advantage that the area has gained over the last decade or half decade.
I mean, the hangover from COVID is that you could work from anywhere, and that worked to Brunswick's advantage.
Hmm.
But now you have this affordability gap and how long it takes someone to be able to buy a home, or
Yep.
what percentage of their wages are going towards rent. That becomes a negative in the long run if it's not addressed.
Absolutely. I think that whether you look at it, as you said, so there are multiple metrics to think about
Right.
affordability. But if you think about renters, you think about people who are paying more than 30% of their income towards rent as being housing burdened.
Mhm.
Those numbers are almost half, or a little more than half in New Hanover, Brunswick, and Pender. And as you said, those numbers have gotten uglier over the last few years, which means that affordability has become strained. So now the fundamental question is if we don't address these things, what kind of challenges does that pose to the attraction and retention of businesses? And what kind of challenges does it pose to the attraction and retention of people, right? And
Sure.
so, because my favorite saying is that people vote with their feet and their pocketbooks, right? And so,
Right.
and at the end of the day, if the numbers don't make sense, people are going to start looking for that next attractive town or affordable town.
Sure. And I know that you've done similar reports for all 100 counties in North Carolina, but
Mhm.
as you look forward, what are you looking at in terms of data that impacts, Brunswick County, the Wilmington region as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's really there is something that I'm currently working on. Unfortunately, the data lags a little bit, but it's the Bureau of Economic Analysis income decomposition data, and it tells us of where does the money actually come from. And the reason this is important is because it really tells us something incredibly useful for planners, for businesses, because it tells you what share of the money that's being spent in an area is coming from earnings, what
Sure.
share is coming from transfers, and what share is coming from investments. And just to kind of, so if you think about Brunswick County, about 43 or 44% of all of the income that flows in the county actually comes from wages,
Okay.
and the rest comes from these non-wage sources, right? And so
Okay.
that means the area has become considerably more sensitive to transfers from the federal government and to stock market valuations and to
Okay.
real estate valuations. And so, from a planning slash thinking about what these people want or what kind of things affect consumption, you have to plan your community around where the money comes from. And there are also tax implications of whether I should implement a sales tax or a property
Sure.
tax. The source of money really matters quite a bit. And then I'm working on, I think I've mentioned it before, a lot of what I term as non-traditional data. So I'm
Okay.
spending quite a bit of time using foot traffic data to better understand these near-term behavioral
Sure.
adjustments that people are making.
That's super. Listen, I want to thank you for your time, and I know
Absolutely.
you're very busy, but I think these conversations are really important. Maybe we could catch up again in another 2 or 3
Absolutely.
months based
Sure.
upon some of the
Yeah.
work you're working on.
Yeah.
It is very much appreciated. So thank you. We will let you go, and we will catch up again.
Sounds good. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.